This is 100x Gaming on the 100x podcast. We're joined by Rex from BattleTech. We are getting into it. Caesar, you and Rex met at Wolves Den. Got to give a shout out to Wolves Den, Sam, and all the legends that put that together. Fantastic. I was so jealous that I couldn't be there. Not sadly, my wife had to be 9 months pregnant with 2 toddlers at home. So
she won't listen to this episode, right?
Yeah. Would kind of be a dirtbag if I went to Wolves Den this time. But hopefully if there's another one, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I'm really excited to have you on. I'm excited to get into it, to learn what BattleTech is. I told you before we were recording, I love esports. I am like a very competitive gamer myself. Used to be connected to Machinima back in the day. Did some Call of Duty stuff when I was in high school. That was a long time ago. A lot of people won't even know what that name is. But I loved it. I've loved the competitive scene forever. And now I tend to be more of a viewer than a player when it comes to comp, just because the season of life that I'm in. When I was looking at you guys, it felt like Friend Tech meets DraftKings for gaming in Web3. Is that like on mark? Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100x. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. RWA is one of the hottest narratives in 2024, and BlockSquare is actively proving why as the tokenization infrastructure provider for real estate. Tokenization changes everything, taking us from a world where a property is transacted once a decade to one where hundreds of transactions of that same asset are executed in moments. Any business can use BlockSquare to digitize the value of properties, launch investment platforms, and connect people to tokenized real estate deals. They've got every tool you need, whether you're a business or you want to participate in RWA through Ocean Point, where they've brought almost 100 properties on chain. To learn more, join their Telegram community and listen to our episode with them in the description below. Astrobit is the king of automated trading, and now they've introduced a freemium model. Put those trading fees to use. How does it work? Sign up to an exchange with one of Astrobit's affiliate links and receive at least 30 free credits as a loyalty bonus. Then earn credits on your trading fees. The more you trade, the more credits you can generate. Use those credits towards trading bots and strategies. In other words, you can create a passive income stream at no cost. Find more deets in the description below.
Yeah, I would say we're not a third-party betting site. So if the feds are listening to this,
we are. It's more participating.
But yes, but it's basically like a Kickstarter for esports.
Okay.
So I think a very high level, right, is we give players the ability to monetize not only the play time that they have, but also the skill that they bring into it. So you can connect your Steam account right now, or focus, like right now, the one game we have live is CS2, but you can port in all of like your kill death ratio, your headshot percentage, how many hours you've played, all of this kind of stuff. And people can see, oh, snap, this person is actually like, they seem like they've poured a lot of time into there. And so the SocialFi layer comes in, then people can buy and sell passes similar to Friend Tech. That part is right. And then the reason that a player would want to have passes is they get a portion of the revenue, but also the reason backers want to buy passes is when a player wins a tournament, they actually split that prize pool with the backers. So it's kind of a good way to like get your diehard fans in, and then at the same time level out kind of your revenue as a player, because you're not only like living and dying by how often you win a prize tournament. So high level overview, but that is BattleTech in a nutshell. Kickstarter for esports.
And why? I'm curious. Like just before we get into some of the weeds, why build it in Web3? Why build it on blockchain? Why build it in crypto? It feels like I've seen none that have succeeded high level yet. Like I think I've seen a few people experimenting with like SocialFi and gaming as a crossover platform. I know we've talked to a handful ourselves, but I haven't seen anyone like totally conquer that. There isn't a clear winner. And I'm curious, why the Web3 component?
Yeah, so I think the Web3 component is because it's very open access, right? I think a lot of traditionally with esports in general, right, it opens up this, like, there's institutional esports and franchise esports, and then there's everyone else, right? Yeah. And in order to get to franchise, like, there's little to no support. And I think a lot of what we are thinking about, right, BattleTech being one of these products, but like as we're thinking about how we support the everyone else is part of that is ubiquitous access, right? And so that's one of the things that blockchain does, right? Protocols, anyone can jump in, jump around and do stuff. You know, you can get into a smart contract. So you could, like through our platform, right, not just be a player who's really good and get passes, but you can also like start your own esports team and start getting like liquidity and start getting like fees and start earning as an esports team. And you could just be, you know, kids in your parents' basement like I was back in the day, thinking I was going to go pro in original StarCraft. So dating myself a little bit.
It was like Black Ops 1 for me. I swore I was going to go pro.
I mean, we were going to make it. It was going to happen. And so like that ubiquitous access, right, where people traditionally, if they wanted to start an esports team, it was a very like there's a very high barrier of entry. But now with BattleTech, you click a couple buttons, you launch a team, and then as long as you can start marketing it or talking to players or whatever, you can start seeing funding come into your account. So that's the main reason for the blockchain stuff. There's a lot of other stuff that will come into play down the road, thinking about like interoperability, how we work with different games and partners and things like that I think will be pretty fun. But a lot of that becomes a lot easier when you're working within, for example, like we're built on Avalanche. So if you think about the subnet ecosystem, working within that subnet ecosystem, I think there's a lot of fun things that you can do there that like a traditional tournament provider wouldn't be able to accomplish.
Cool.
That's a very interesting place to take in. Before we touch on sort of the AVAX area of it, because I think that gets really interesting. How
shout out to my boys Coop and Parker, Ed.
Hey,
you know, love you guys. All right,
shout
there we go.
Parker. I have a call with him today.
All right. Tell him I don't say hi. Like I want him to know that we talked and that I didn't say hi.
That you did not want to say hello to Parker.
Yeah.
There you go. When thinking for someone in mind that hasn't used BattleTech before, how would you say each person would interact with it? I know in the beginning you talked about the players, the backers, different people like that. How would every person interact with the platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends. It depends on what you want to do on the site, right? If you want to come in and you want to make money because you have played video games for a very long time and you are just right now CS2, right? We're going to be rolling out to other games very soon. But like you're just cracked at CS2. If you're looking for a new way to make money, this is like a great way to do that because so Faceit is the primary way that we're powering this right now. So on Faceit, everyone has like an ELO score. A lot of the competitive players in CS2 have a Faceit account with an ELO score. You port in a lot of that data directly to the website with one click button, and then you click your pass is live. You just click a button. We will buy the first pass for you. So you jump in, you like have a stake in your future, and then people can start buying and selling and trading your pass. It's on the open market, and that happens to anyone around the world. So, for example, there was this one player who ended up at the time having like the highest ELO score on the site, and he like launched his pass. He's like, I'll see what this thing is. He launched his pass. He went to sleep. He woke up with like $800 in fees. And it was like the first time where he was like, I didn't have to like play or compete or do anything, and I just have money. And he went and bought 2 like $400 CSGO skins with it, right? Like he was able to take it out and like go do like what he wants, why he plays in competitions, which is to go buy more CS2 loot crates and stuff like that. And so like that is like a very amazing thing that is opens up the opportunity. He took his years of playing Counter-Strike and like ported in his statistics, and then people were able to like speculate on that history and that skill. And so like that was a really, really cool thing for him. And I think a lot of players would like that idea is like, you know, please don't buy my pass if we launch original StarCraft. But like all of the hours that I poured into original StarCraft, right? It's like that can mean something. Yes. That can mean something now, which I think is really, really cool. So that's from the player's perspective. From the backer's perspective, right? I think one of the big things that's happening is the narrative around gaming, and a lot of people are trying to figure out like which tokens should I go for. Like I don't really know anything about gaming. I'm more of like a DeFi, real world assets, all of that kind of stuff. And this is like a really interesting opportunity because people are familiar, especially on the deep Web3 side, familiar with kind of the friend tech and the Stars Arena type stuff. And so you get to do that again here, but there's a little bit more of like a tangible thing versus just popularity contest. And so the idea is there's kind of twofold ways to make money on this, which is one, buying a pass when it's at a low price and selling it at a high price. Good luck. Obviously Godspeed on that. But the other side of the equation is we have tournaments that happen daily. So we're actually, because of how many tournaments we're running, we are the 11th most active clan in the world for CS2 on Faceit, ahead of like some very top well-known stuff, and we only launched the platform February 15th. So it's like we're growing incredibly quickly. Players are like interested in the idea of like uploading their stats. All that to say is the backers can come in and see this like litany of players that are playing on a daily basis, almost like, and I will not say, I'll say craft dings, almost like that, where they have their daily fantasy sports. You can come in and there's always content to kind of consume and see, and people to back, and people to learn about, and new teams to find. And then you can buy and sell the passes. And then as they win, right, the pass price will increase with that as well. So there's kind of two ways to make money on that sense, from the backers' perspective.
So rather than, you said you referenced DraftKings, I referenced that. For me, it was more of a reference to like, if I'm not playing the game myself, how do I engage with the teams, not just like watching the game on Twitch or Kick or whatever Web3 alternative is going to pop up someday. But like, hey, maybe I want to participate in that tournament. DraftKings, I don't know that they do esports, but I was referencing them as far as like engaging with games. And so for you guys, engaging with doesn't look like directly betting on the outcome of specific tournaments so much as it's like where FriendTech, you're buying into your favorite creators and getting their, I forget what they called it, shares or something. I think they switched that because they didn't want the SEC coming after them. Switched
Classic
to keys.
SEC, FBI, any three-letter government
I'm
organization.
buying shares of someone directly. Then it's keys. Now everyone's saying keys, I think, has become the new like term for any of these social platforms. So it's like I get to buy into the players themselves and eventually potentially the teams themselves. I think that's cool. Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to get to participate.
Yeah, I think I don't think so. A lot of SocialFi out there, I think this is like there's a big SocialFi question, right? Which is like, we're gonna take down X, and like this is like, Facebook is done because our new SocialFi, like we are not, in the.
You're not Truth Social.
No. We're not taking down. If we did get Trump on the platform, I'm sure his pass would do all right. But
he does have NFTs.
That's true. We're like that's not the focus of this, and so I think a lot of these SocialFi platforms that are out there are like trying to tackle this gigantic thing. But what we are trying to do is like, right, there's a funnel of how you and your fans interact, right? Some fans will follow, like, you'll have 1 million followers on Twitter, right? Maybe you have like a Patreon if you're a creator, or you have your Twitch stream if you're like a video gamer, right? And then so those are some more devoted, and it moves further down the funnel. And then like, but if you're a competitive player, right, as you don't necessarily have like a Patreon, you may have like a Twitch, but then you can have your super devoted fans, which I think is the bottom tier, which would be like your BattleTech pass holders. And these are the people that aren't just like, there to like give you likes and retweets, but they're like financially invested in your future as a gamer, which is why we call this like the Kickstarter for E-Sports, right? They are like finding, there are people out there who will be finding players who are like early, who are like up and coming. They'll be looking at the stats and tracking them across tournaments and be like, what, this kid, I think they're going places, like, let me see if I can help them out, right? Let me fund them. It's there's a financial reward for me for doing so I'm incentivized to like help them. Maybe I'm even like setting up coaching courses, and then it can even grow to a step further, right? How you're interacting with not only with the players that you're a fan of, but also like, hey, I have 2 kids. We were all talking about kids and cats at the beginning of this. But like, I don't have the time to like get the reps in anymore, but I do want to pursue my esports dream. I can start up my own team, right? I know players who are good, or I can help find, or I can start scouting through the website, set up my own team, start funding players, and doing that stuff as well. So there's kind of like a few fun ways that you can really step in, that I think, it really tackles like a different level of what you're looking for from the types of fans that you're getting through BattleTech versus somewhere else.
Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, deep-in mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below. Crypto does not need to be complicated. Kadena is building the human layer of blockchain by giving the power back to the people and allowing them to build products that make a difference for humanity. Founded by ex-JP Morgan and SEC blockchain leads, Kadena develops easy-to-understand, human-readable tools and solutions that focus on the long-term development of the space, not just short-term gains. Simply put, if we want real, regular people to enter and enjoy Web3, Kadena is making a way. To learn more, check out Kadena.io, follow them on Twitter at Kadena_IO, or watch our episode with them.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
You mentioned that the platform has been live since mid-February. So you guys have been up for about a month and a half. In that month and a half, what is currently out there? What can people currently do on the platform, and what will be available in the near future?
Yeah, so right now it's devoted to Counter-Strike 2. We're still in beta, so it is a beta platform. So we're making sure like all of the tournaments are locked in, all the payouts are going right, all the systems are not super buggy. So all of that stuff is getting ironed out. And then once that happens, right, then we start opening up new regions, especially like very time-sensitive games like Counter-Strike, right? We're primarily based out of South America right now. We just are launching EU this week, so you'll start to do prize tournaments there, followed by North America in a little bit. But then we're also going to start rolling out different games. So that way it's not just first-person shooters everywhere. Maybe some MOBAs will be coming down the pike, maybe some cozy, I still to this day will die on the hill that I am the best competitive Stardew Valley player out there. So when we roll out competitive Stardew Valley gaming on the site, the cozy farming simulator folks can come into.
I got to figure out how to want to get some of your keys.
That's it. That's the moment you buy Rex. All right, Rex is up only when Stardew Valley. Yeah. And so right now, right, you can either come in, you can back players, you can back teams, you can make teams, and all of this is revolving around CS2, or you can play in tournaments. So those are the main things today. With, again, all of those same functionalities will happen. It's just going to be new games and new regions as we roll out.
I have a quick follow-up question there. Yeah. Is the reason why you started with CS2, just from the sounds of it, is because it had the ELO's ranking system and it was just easy to pour over that data? And are you guys planning on building your own ranking system and all the data structure for the other games? Or will you guys look to use things that are already built out for the other games?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first off, the reason we started this actually, so Owned is this umbrella company.
Yeah, we're going to ask a question about the way the three brands work together.
So Owned is kind of the umbrella, right? And the vision of Owned, so I'm the CEO of Owned. The vision of Owned is, how do we activate Web2 gamers in Web3? And I think when a lot of people hear that, they're like, oh, like, let's get them playing Web3 games. And it's like, I don't think that's the right focus. At least that's my hypothesis, right? When you're asking, like, Nine Heroes is a great game, right? Or Parallel, fantastic game. But what you're asking players to do usually when coming to play that game is not only are you asking them to, like, try out a new game, which 40 games a day launch on Steam that flop, and they're not Web3 enabled. And then you're also asking them to drink from the crypto fire hose, which is what we have all done at some point, which is like mayhem, right? And you're asking them to do that at the same time. And so what our philosophy is like, we're not like, as much as I do want to make a game eventually, maybe this will lead to that. What I want to do is help the Web2 folks come in and start to familiarize themselves with some of the things that happen in Web3, right? We still have, like, we do wonderful things for Web2 users, kind of abstraction. We do a lot of that stuff, so they're familiar, but they start to this, like, I'm using Avalanche. Like, that's the token I get paid in. Like, let me learn a little bit about Avalanche. Okay, cool. There's, like, if I want to take the money out, like, oh, I need to, like, now I'm learning about gas. Like, there's just, like, these small learning moments that can come into this place. So that way, when they do jump over to Parallel, they do jump over to Nine Heroes, or they bridge to start doing the next cat meme coin that's out there, hopefully they go down that degen rabbit hole, of course. they're like much more familiar, and so now these Web3 switches are turned on for all these people in the background. And so Owned, right, that's the vision, and so we're building products underneath that target different gamer sets in that. So we did the Game League, which is like kind of the casual competitive gamer. And that's where we learned, going back to the original question, Caesar, that's where we learned, like CS2 has like this really cool thing, because we ran this $1.4 million tournament where we gave away a ton of prizes. And the best of all of the 80 plus games that we worked with, the best iteration was like CS2, and specifically CS2 in South America. Like we saw the biggest onboarding from there.
I remember that tournament.
There's something
I played some Fortnite games during that.
Nice. All right. Good. But yeah.
What is? Finish your thought, and then I'll ask you another question.
No. Yeah. So that's it. So we knew something was there with South America and CS2, and so we started figuring out like, okay, like what can we do to support the folks there? And we noticed we just had a bunch of competitive players, and so that's where we started ideating on like how do we support this like burgeoning competitive player ecosystem. And then BattleTech came from that. So here we are.
Question. I was gonna say I met, I think his name was Simon, with Unix Gaming at Permissionless last August. I think I have an Owned t-shirt, actually. What's the difference between... I've worn it on the podcast, actually. What's the difference between Unix and Owned?
Yeah, so Unix is a foundation. They launched back in 2021 as a gaming guild and raised through a token sale like 30 million USD. And since like I think it was like 2 weeks after they raised, like guilds obviously went kaput. Everything happened with the bear market, and so since then they have been trying to Mirko, the founder, has been trying to work on different businesses, like revenue generating businesses, and that's where I kind of came into the picture with Owned. Is like, hey, if we can fund this, I think we have some really cool things that we can do with this. So Unix is the funding. If you think about it, kind of like I don't know, like Ava Labs versus Avalanche. So Avalanche is like the foundation, and Ava Labs, which is like Owned, is like the operating.
You guys are
business.
sister companies, essentially.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So
sweet.
It's basically like, please, sir, may I have some more from the funding perspective to make sure to build out some fun projects.
Unix is funding Owned, who is building BattleTech.
Correct.
Beautiful.
It's very confusing. There's a whole lot of things. We're trying to simplify, so probably some changes on that coming sooner than later.
Well, I have an Owned t-shirt, so we're basically all in.
We'll keep that.
I didn't even put that together until right before this conversation. I was like, oh, that's the same brand. So
yeah. Perfect. We made
cool.
it.
I played a Fortnite round during that big 80 game tournament you guys did.
Hopefully. We were trying to get out there.
I didn't win anything. I think I played one round. But
that's all right.
Maybe I should have
everyone.
committed a little more.
You know, you have children. We're older folks now. Okay,
exactly.
We're the ones setting up building.
We're the boomers of
BattleTech
gaming.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. We talk about the games. I'm pretty good at them, but I know that there's some younger bucks that are better than me now.
Yeah, my profile now, absolutely mediocre gamer. So I'm not trying to pretend to be anything but mediocre gamer.
I think
my Twitter handle says future almost semi-pro gamer. So.
I like it.
I'm living on that dream. That's pretty close to what I am. I think I'm better than the casual gamers, but I'm not the pro, and I know it. I know where I fit. Competitive casual. I'm curious. Yeah. You guys obviously started with CS2. You're looking at other games. Are you going to implement, or when are you going to implement Web3 gaming into that? Because obviously, we all want that to be the thing, right? But there isn't a big esports scene for Web3 gaming yet.
Yeah. This is a big, like, one of the, at the end of the day, right? User onboarding is like a focus of what Owned is, right? How do we onboard Web users into Web3? And so I think that BattleTech opens up a really neat opportunity where we can help jumpstart the competitive ecosystems for games. Like, for example, and not to put the carpet for the horse, but we're talking with Shrapnel right now, right? We haven't solidified anything, but like one of the things that's really nice about what we have is we have, like, right now every week we have 12,000 competitive CS2 players that are like competing for prize pools that are like in the hundreds of dollars,
right?
And Shrapnel is this amazingly well done first person extract and shooter that has like a bi-weekly tournament for $100,000. And so, like,
way bigger than
I know.
Those
guys.
And
I know the moment I mention that to these kids who are just like cracked at CS2, every single one of them will learn how to dominate shrapnel in like 24 hours.
And then it's
like,
over for me.
I know. I will never be on the 1,000 leaderboard again.
I'm out, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what when I think about how we bring in Web3 games, like, right, if we just launched, for example, if we just launched Axie tomorrow on the site, I don't think we would do that much for Axie. But if we were to launch like Teamfight Tactics, and then we launched the Illuvium Arena, right? I think like those things, now we have a very targeted subset of gamers that are interested in the very specific genre.
Launch Overwatch 2, then launch Nyan Heroes.
Yes. And so like that's our kind of growth strategy, is how do we target the right games with the right genres, and help support Web3 from that side, because I think it also buys us some time, right, to build up the user base, but it also buys the games some time to get like esports or like competitive game ready.
Have you played? This is just like a random potshot question. Have you played Wildcard yet?
I have, yes.
I'm curious, because they're obviously like designed with esports in mind. What kind of target audience? Because that's a split between genres would you hit for a game like that? And that's not just Wildcards. I think a lot of the Web3 games are like, we're taking this genre and mashing them together.
Yeah.
How do you hit a targeted audience?
So that one will be a bit tougher, but I think as we roll out to more games, right? If we roll out to like a MOBA, and then we have like some trading card games, or we have some like, like more like real-time strategy games with like resource management and stuff like that, that's where the wild card can come into the picture. I think I have to put this out there. I think many games will do well. I think wildcard is well positioned to like kind of capture a new esport. I'm like so bullish on Wildcard.
I'm really excited about them.
I'm so bullish on Wildcard. I think they have like a really, really strong case for like a new genre-defining esport game, which is exciting. And so like everything I want to do, right, is like, how do I prep for the Wildcards, the Shrapnels, the Gunzillas, right? Like, how do I prep and make sure we have like enough of a competitive player base ready to jump into these new games, and then working with all these games very closely to like support them, run tournaments, get the competitive players involved. I don't know. That's what I think about.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course I think about my wife first, but then after I think about my wife, I think about this. Shelby, if you're listening to this. Yeah.
One more question on this little loop that we're in.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking a little bit about something you said before the show, but also about, I don't know, like it has felt like esports was in a bubble for a hot minute, and that bubble is deflating. I know during like the COVID era, it was really easy to say like, I'm going to hop on Twitch and watch 50 different esports tournaments. I don't know, like it felt maybe that was the height, and people were throwing ridiculous amounts of money at it. There was tournaments every week worth $10 million. And the people throwing the millions of dollars weren't really seeing the return, the ROI to justify to continue doing that. And so there's like a shakeup happening where we've seen like just looking at streaming, like what's happening with a lot of people wanting to leave Twitch because of the shakeup happening. A lot of tournaments dying out. I think it was is it Overwatch that just completely threw away their entire fired, what's her name? I'm blanking on her name, but threw away their entire in-house gaming studio or tournament studio. A bunch of these games are now saying, we can't really support the esports in-house. Like it's too expensive and it's not profitable. Where do you guys come in? Coming into a sector that like, there's a lot of us that really want to participate in it, but maybe the money isn't there for the way it has looked corporately for the last 10 years. And it looks like it's kind of falling apart. You're walking into a world that's falling apart and saying, hey, I want to build something among the ashes. How do you do that?
So I think the biggest thing is there's an opportunity here. So in the grand scheme of things, right, I think what we are trying to build at Owned is like products that like help support games. Like, everyone's like, it's not Web3 gaming or Web2 gaming, it's just gaming, right? We're trying to build tools that support games, right? And so obviously we love the Web3 games, so we're trying to turn on Web3 switches for the gamers as they're coming into Web3. But the esports specifically, like Web2, if you look at, like, I've studied a lot of this, like terms of service for running tournaments or like sponsorships or trying to like integrate systems with any Web 2 publisher like Activision Blizzard outside of Valve. I will say Valve, like if I'm allowed to curse, like they don't give a flying whatever about who's running tournaments and who's participating or whatever, which is one of the other reasons we chose Counter-Strike 2. But like Activision Blizzard, Riot, like very early on in all of the terms of service for any tournament that is prize money or sponsorships or anything is like no cryptocurrency, no blockchain, no of that devil's lettuce that is online fake internet money,
we hate
right?
NFTs.
Right. Yeah. And that's like it's like everywhere. But because the esports industry is struggling so intensely, this is like our bet is the fact that like this could be our Trojan horse to help open up the doors for a lot of Web 2 publishers to think differently about how Web 3 plays in these ecosystems. And that's because like there's not really an alternative. And so we're hoping and what we pretty strongly believe is that BattleTech can be like a really good way for that. And I think there's two sides to it. One is like the institutional level, the business model they've had set up forever, which is like players that are like way too expensive, which is like, you know, kudos for those kids. Get the bags. They're like young kids that are getting like $1 million contracts. Go for it. Right. If you can get it, get it. But because of that, it's led to this like really intense dichotomy between like the teams and the players almost being against each other in some capacity.
Right.
And then also like that's only talking about like the top 1% of like franchised esports gaming. There's like, I think the reason that esports became such a big thing back in the day is because like there is anyone could get into it, right? You don't
everyone
need to be like
all of us wanted to be a professional gamer.
Yeah,
it's what we grew
Who
up
wouldn't want to be. Yeah. And also it's like a great equalizer, right? You don't have to be genetically predispositioned to be like 6'7" or like, you know, have gigantic hammies so you can like run down the football pitch as like quickly as possible, right? There's so like it is a great equalizer gaming. So like anyone can jump in. And so I think that's like that was one of the things and so it was very like grassroots. People were spinning up stuff and the institutions would say like, oh, there's a lot of money to be made here. How do we institutionalize this? How do we take this to the top? And so I think like there's going to be this shift of focus from top 1% to how do we support the rest of this. And people say like grassroots all the time. I hate using keywords, but like the grassroots ecosystem, how do you support them? And BattleTech is one, like we, as much as I would love, like if FaZe Banks called me up tomorrow and was like, we want to get FaZe on BattleTech, I would be like, sweet, don't get me wrong, like I'm not going to say no, but like that's not what we're like. We've signed with 9Z, which is like one of the biggest South American Counter-Strike 2 teams, but like we didn't want to sign their pro team. We wanted to sign their academy team. It's the team that's typically underfunded. It's a team that's typically like a cost center for one of the esports teams. And now like the fans are excited because they get to buy into the team. They're like helping vote on like who gets to make it to the top. They're also like helping scout. Yeah. They're also helping like scout people on BattleTech. Like, yo, you should sign this guy. He's killing it on BattleTech, right? And so like it's creating this like really like much more interactive experience for like the teams and their fans. And so that's where, you know, to go back to your question, that's why we're thinking esports. It's a Trojan horse for us to go into gaming more broadly in the Web 2 side, where they're thinking like things may change and like they're looking for new monetization models. And it's like, and we can already bring the fact like the fans are very interested in this. The players are super keen on this kind of stuff. And that's like, if you can bring them that data, then they're going to chase it down. You know, they're not going to turn away money.
I dig that a lot. And I would say like as a crypto nerd, as someone who has learned to love this space, I think all too often we get lost in like just inventing brand new things over and over and over again. But the reality is there is a lot that Web3 or that blockchain or that the social aspects of Web3 or the ingenuity here can actually shape up things that kind of need a defibrillator on the heart to be revived and made new. And that's essentially what you guys are saying is, look, esports might be a pile of ashes right now for a lot of the traditional games, but you know what? We can be the Phoenix. Like we can bring something fresh. We can bring ways that innovate a dying industry and bring it back to life. I think that's really cool.
Thanks.
I'm curious.
Too, so that's cool.
Yeah. So you've won me over. Your pitch is
there we go. I got one more.
However I get
Caesar,
in,
are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
All right, we got two.
Caesar's there. You've won me over. When it comes to AVAX, you mentioned something in the like 5 minutes in about being involved with AVAX, the subnets. I am curious, and this isn't anything really specific, but we've just been asking this question all the time of like, we really like AVAX gaming. I mean,
Yeah.
I mentioned I'm calling someone from their team
Yes,
today
yes,
just
yes,
because
yes,
I kind
yes.
of want to pick their brains and see how we can get more involved. I think
Yeah.
I'm all in on some of the games on AVAX, so I'm curious why those games are there. But at the same time, like I'm all in on some games that are unimmutable. I'm all in on some
Yeah.
games that are. There's a lot of different places that people are choosing to call home, and I want to
Yeah.
know, why did you guys choose to call AVAX home?
Well, if I'm talking to Cooper Parker, it's just straight up the vibes, right? Or if I'm talking to Ed, it's like we got some good vibes going on here. But when I was looking, so like I've been doing the stuff in gaming now since I got in right after the Axie bust, so I was like, all right,
Okay.
it's only down here, so it's up only for me. And so like what I've been noticing over time is as the gaming chains are getting to a point now where they're almost like they're falling into certain swim lanes, right? Like you have the Ronin chain, which is like massive amounts of players, very focused on play to earn, which is, again, I think they're doing amazing things for like onboarding people to Web3. So like if I can learn anything from Jiho, which is I would love to. And so then IMX, right? They're onboarding as many games as possible because they have like super easy infrastructure
like 300
for
or
games.
something in the next year and a half.
It's like so many games, right? And that's because they have really great, easy infrastructure for developers. But like how many I don't know how many of those games, they're mostly like, from what I've seen so far, right, middle tier. Illuvium, AAA quality game, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of them are still either far out if they're going to be at the AAA level. I think, like, for example, like Scale has got some interesting stuff building right now. I think Polygon is moving most of their stuff over to IMX, right? But what Avalanche has that I don't think a lot of the other games, I cannot forget Treasure and Arbitrum. They have like the great like Pixel. The Beacon is coming out soon, or like their
Everyone
tokens
is
coming
saying
out soon.
Treasure's
Big
the future.
fan. Treasure's the future. I'm a big fan of Treasure. But Avalanche has, of the games, the highest concentration of like AAA quality games that have competitive elements. And like when we're building our product, right, we're focusing on like what games can we bring to CS2 players or Overwatch 2 players or Hearthstone players or whatever. And so we're really hyper focused on that. And being in that ecosystem, I think, is really, really helpful. Because like if we can roll out BattleTech to Gunzilla, and just imagine if Dr. Disrespect wanted to open up a profile in BattleTech, right? It's like game over for like onboarding Web 2 people to Web 3. It's like that's it. And so I think Avalanche, from a competitive game and like high caliber game perspective, they, at least in the current market conditions, like where the games are and when they're coming out, has like the highest aptitude for that. So that's why we index them outside of just vibes.
The vibes of the boys. Yeah, that makes sense. Are you gonna be directly on AVAX? Are you gonna be on a subnet? What does that look like?
So we are on the C chain right now, so we're on mainnet. We are going to be rolling out a subnet. So this is like very, very early. We have a lot of ideas there, but the idea there is to be much more closely integrated with the game partners that are building on Avalanche, because the teleporter stuff is really cool. I think there's some fun stuff which we're hammering out right now with a few titles, which is the smart contracting. Like this is like getting super developer focused, but like the smart contracting stuff lives on C chain right now, and that would be focused for like the Web 2 games where we have like storing the liquidity and like interacting with the chain and all of that kind of stuff. But because of the interoperability nature of the teleporter and the subnets, we can actually spin up like if we're going to work with Shrapnel or Bloodloop, for example, we can spin up like a specific LP contract for monetized profiles on that game's subnet. And now there's like it's not just like we're partnered with whoever and it's just like you do a couple tweets together and you move on. Like no, like we're like fundamentally integrating our systems in a way like most people don't get to do when they're doing partnerships. And I think that's one really cool thing that another thing that Avalanche gives us the ability to do, but the ecosystem that we're stepping into. So we are going to be launching our own subnet that is involved with like trying to tie together a lot of competitive games in a fun way.
Cool.
I think that's really awesome because, I mean, Teleporter is bringing a lot of interoperability to Avalanche subnets that, I mean, I feel like it was promised for a while now, and I've been looking for it because I've messed around with a lot of subnets. I mean, I just went from the DeFi Kingdom chain over to Beam to try to get those Forgotten Playland boxes a couple days ago.
Gotta get my Forgotten Playland boxes.
But we're still trying to get there. People are still having to implement those teleporter things. But then you also mentioned another thing is like, even though there's a lot of gaming focused on AVAX, there are some other really cool things built on other chains. How do you guys plan to implement those things like that are living on Solana, like Nine Heroes and other chains? How do you guys plan to work with that?
So I think initially it really depends on the game. Like I think very easily, right, we can spin up monetized profiles, and it doesn't really matter what chain you're on, right? For the gamer's perspective, if they want to have the ability to be like, hey, Nyan, I want monetized profiles and block, like BattleTech has that ready to go right now. Like all we need, right, is APIs for player stats, and then like the ability to spin up private lobbies, and that's like chain agnostic. It doesn't matter. It's very like Web2 integrations, and so like that can happen tomorrow. Obviously, like I'm sure some of the games will be like, hey, if they have their own subnets or layer 3s or whatever, they may want to figure out new ways to do that, in which case we can walk down that path. I think that's further out. But yeah, we can spin up with Web2 games even if they're not on chain, just because of like the structure of how we built this product, which is again very like Web2 native, but with Web3 elements, different than like forcing everyone to come and drink the Web3 Kool-Aid.
Nice. And I've actually downloaded BattleTech. I've tried out the app. I made my account. I connected to the other site to be able to get some more stuff. Yep, I pop a Big Mac pass.
Is this the pump?
Okay. Wait, you did just play a tournament yesterday. What did you place in the Nyan Heroes tournament yesterday?
I got to the third round, and then we got shafted by Ping, but that's a whole nother conversation.
The Asia versus West Coast
the United States.
Yes. That sucks. Yeah.
But even though the onboarding process was really easy, I didn't have any issues with it. But I'm also walking into it with a very Web3 native. Like I understood everything. I saw the AVAX. I understood the passes. For someone that maybe is only seeing Web2 games, only follow CS2 Go, and then heard one of their streamers like, hey, I have BattleTech if you want to get one of my passes. Their onboarding process might be a little bit different because they have to deal with Avalanche. And even though their first pass was free, once they start getting more and more into the actual platform, they're going to have to become more Web3 native, or at least understand these terms a little bit more. Do you guys have any plans to actually just take a lot of that away and use other forms of payments?
Yeah, so we're going to do fiat on and off ramps. I think that's like a really important thing for this. And that will be like native on the site very soon. I think one of the things that we are very cognizant of is we actually, outside of like getting AVAX into the site originally, we try and cover gas for most of the sites. We have a relayer set up, so we're trying to cover a lot of that. So even if you don't know much about Web3, like the initial step is like learning about Avalanche. So there's kind of one thing you need to learn. But yeah, we're trying to make this as like pretty seamless as possible. You know, we use the account abstraction. We do like login with Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. And then honestly, like it's interesting. The highest power users of the site aren't the Web3 folks who like I would think would be more familiar. It's like the Web2 folks who are super plugged into the CS2 scene because like they know all the other players that they're playing against, and they're like buying and selling. They're like hedging their bets in the sense of like, oh, I know I'm about to face this guy in a tournament, and like he's better than me. I'm gonna buy his pass.
Let me grab some of his shares real quick since he's gonna smoke me.
Yeah, like it's crazy.
That's
like,
awesome.
And so we've seen like this really big pickup. And so like, what's nice to like a good thing for me is like, oh, we've solved Web2 user onboarding to Web3, and we've gotten them to get very familiar with Web3 stuff very quickly, right? And so it's to me, right, it's like the Web3 folks, which I didn't think was going to be as hard is like now I have to teach esports to Web3. And so like that's our big like undertaking right now, the big mission. But for everyone involved in Web2, Web3, we are intentionally trying to make this just like a game, like free to play if you would like to. You can drop money in, but we run like free weekly leaderboards. We have free daily tournaments. Like there's a way that you can come in, and as long as you're skilled enough, you can get started for free, and then you can be up only on the site. You don't have the chance to lose anything. So we're very cognizant about that as well, especially if people are coming in from all over the world who may not have the means to do a bunch of all of this other stuff. We want to give them access.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder, I've said that before, that like when we talk about like mass adoption and getting lots of players, that's kind of hard when you're making a Web3 game, because from my perspective, it feels like most people, even in the Web3 gaming space, aren't, not to gatekeep, maybe I'm gatekeeping, but aren't actually like gamers. They're people who caught onto the narrative in crypto. And I've seen that way too often where it's like, oh, like I don't have a PC that I can even play games on. Like I'm just buying the tokens of stuff, or like, but I'm a gamer. I don't know, man. Like you have to play a game to be a gamer. I don't care how good you are. I'm not going to gatekeep that, but you got to play something.
Right.
And it does feel like I see that really often. And I wonder how many people in the Web3 gaming space are actually gamers that understand esports or things like this versus have like you actually have to bring people in because there aren't enough here. The pool is too small.
Right. Yeah, and so like the luckily the player base that we're pulling in is like Web 2, so it's like fresh players. If anyone's looking to jump in and get some user acquisition, I'm here. I think there's like the Web 3. It's like interesting because there's when you think about especially what games are thinking about and what we're thinking about, right? There's kind of like two games to play. There's like the actual game itself, and there's the speculation game.
Yes.
And so like
maybe you're a gamer when it comes to investing.
yeah, you're a gamer when you come in to like speculate on coins, right? And so like that's a very different game. So making sure to satisfy, but they wouldn't be necessarily gamers in the traditional sense, but they're definitely like Web3 GameFi gamers in the sense that like they're tapping into narratives. They're seeing how to they're the min-maxers of gaming, right? They're trying to put the least amount of effort in to get the maximum reward. And so like that's the type of gamer that we come across all over the place. It's a very different nuanced take when it comes
it's just
when
that gamer
have, like, real money
is somehow the most common gamer in Web3.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So that's why we're trying to change
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, I didn't even have this written down. You just referenced people that are just playing the speculation game. Do you guys, with you guys having like an AVAX subnet, do you intend on always just using AVAX as your like gas? Do you think you'll ever launch a token? I know this is a sus question.
Yes. No. So there are talks on the horizon about possibly figuring out something along those lines. More news to come.
A little bit of alpha there for you if you needed that in your veins.
Yes. If you needed some hopium out there when Bitcoin drops a few points. Yeah. So we'll see. We're trying to we're trying to figure out like Rex token would. I'll launch that meme coin tomorrow. We're trying to figure out like what's best, right? I think AVAX or Avalanche has been like really, really supportive in a lot of this stuff, and so like how do we? Because like at the end of the day, we're nothing if we're not the games that are in the ecosystem that are building on BattleTech, and so like how do we best support them? And so figuring out if it's our own token is a way that we can like, because I can see fun things like similar to like what Blast is doing, right? If players are coming in from games and competing through their own game, right? How can we reward those players for doing certain actions to help jumpstart the community with we can do that with our own token much easier than we can do it with Avalanche. But if it's easier to work within the confines of the entire Avalanche ecosystem on Avalanche, and like that's a better focus of how we grow, I don't know. So those are the thoughts that we're having, trying to figure those things out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good question.
That's a question I've asked myself all the time when just talking about AVAX. Caesar and I have actually talked about that. Like, I wonder how AVAX best captures the value of all these subnets if they're all using their own tokens. And I don't know the answer to that question. That's a question I guess I got to ask AVAX. So
yeah. Well, later today. Now you got a question lined up.
All right, Parker, get ready. I have really just one last question for you. I'm looking at this from the perspective of anyone who is listening right now. What narratives are you guys playing into? You've got SocialFi, you've got esports, you've got Web3 gaming, you've got these major adoption narratives that everyone's getting excited about, tied into a package that makes me pretty bullish. What is coming in 2024? People are bullish. They want to get excited. They want to pay attention. What should they be excited about this year?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that a lot of people are often chasing is like quote unquote like mass adoption. What does mass adoption look like? I think what BattleTech, I know, right? What BattleTech offers is the ability for a lot of these games that people are looking at and speculating on, right? There's parallel token is just ridiculously high, right? And Shrap token is out there, Illuvium. Like there's a lot of games in their token, and they're trying to figure out how to speculate on a lot of these different things. I think BattleTech brings like legitimate real gamers to these ecosystems, which helps those ecosystems thrive. And so like the more people think about, BattleTech is like on the front, they're on the precipice of Web 2 versus like being in the Web 3 degen, like, or the Web 3 kind of pool of the same gamers that are just cycled between game and game, depending on what quests they have to do at what day. That is what I think should be the most exciting for people. Like these are 12, like the people that we have are 12,000 gamers that are playing with us on a weekly basis that have never played like a Web3 game before, and they're ready to play a Web3 game.
They are
if we
ready.
Give them the right incentive.
Give them.
If we give them the right.
Who did I see? Was it Coop
incentive.
yesterday that tweeted? Someone tweeted yesterday. Everyone's talking about AAA games, AA games. How about a playable game? Think, give us a playable game, and you've got the gamers ready to play them.
Right. Yeah. So that's what we're here for. So get excited about that. Get excited about our subnet. Get excited about all sorts of monetized profiles. We're going to be rolling out. Like, we're trying to aim for a new game every other month. So a lot of new content, a lot of new communities that we can tap into. So
sweet.
Get ready.
Epic, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to engage with you guys. I guess I need to put on my t-shirt next episode.
Yeah, next time.
Now that I'm officially on the owned train, the BattleTech train. Cool.
There we go.
Awesome, Rex. I appreciate you sitting down with us, giving us this juicy conversation. It's been good. The vibes have been good. I hope we compare to Parker and Coop. We'll see when I talk.
We'll see. Well, Tell him I don't say hi.
I will tell him you specifically do not say hello. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, you can find links to BattleTech and Rex and everything they're building below. Please go engage with them. Go jump in, explore their ecosystem, have some fun. That's what this is about. Buy Caesar's pass.
Don't buy my pass. Don't buy my pass.
I don't have one
but
yet.
I need all the followers and likes I can get.
Exactly. Follow me on Twitter. We think that gaming needs to be fun again. And I think that's the mission these guys are on. Make Web3 gaming fun again. So go engage with it. Go have fun. Love it.
Dude, that's
Thank
when
you,
Trump
Rex.
comes
We'll
onto
see you
the
guys
site.
next time.
All right.